Good morning, everybody. I am Dave Jokum with the Longview Chamber of Commerce. I'm the Director of Membership and Business Development, and we're glad you're here today. I have a few minutes with your camera on to talk to folks and your microphone. If you don't have a camera and microphone, you're fine for the rest of the session here because you're not going to need them. But we wanted to give you a little bit of that experience of that networking going on. So hope you enjoyed that if you got to participate. I'm going to go ahead and start my slide presentation so I can recognize some folks. But let me just give you a couple of points of interest. There's a chat box to your right. If you have any questions or any issues, you can either do a general chat, or you can chat with someone in particular. So pick a name and talk to them, or ask a question. If you want to ask a question, again, you can do the general, or if you have a question for our presenter today, you can send it to me, Dave Jokum. All right. So I hope that gets you started there. And let me go ahead and get my screen up and share that with you. All right. This is our HealthyVIEW Summit done virtually. So welcome. I want to let you know a little bit about our HealthyVIEW initiative and the mission behind it. It is to advocate for real solutions that help shape individual, organizational, and environmental health change through a collaborative, community-wide public and private partnership. That is what HealthyVIEW is all about for the Chamber. And our vision is to create a culture of health and wellness in the Longview trade area. The reason why? Because we found that Gregg County is the 8th least healthiest county in the state of Texas, which was quite surprising to me in particular, but really all of us on staff. And we thought we've got to help do something about that, because the health of people today matters for the workforce tomorrow, right? And so that's what HealthyVIEW is all about. Our goal, again, is to build a culture of health. And what does that include? It's 5 focus areas: physical health, emotional and spiritual health, financial health, career and workplace health, and community health. So those are we call them the buckets sometimes, that are the focus for HealthyVIEW. We want to recognize, of course, our sponsors, because what we do would not be possible without them. Our cornerstone investors are the folks who invest in us at a very high level. And so we appreciate Aon Coil, Eastman Chemical, Copeland Insurance Group, Conterra Networks, Texas Bank and Trust, and VeraBank for their belief in our work and their support of our work. Our HealthyVIEW initiative, our overall initiative sponsors are Aon Coil. They're our corporate wellness sponsor. And then we have 2 training and webinar sponsors, Copeland Insurance Group and Worley. So we appreciate you folks for being in partnership with us. Our HealthyVIEW Summit today is our presenting sponsor is Texas Sedation and Implant Center, and we have a message from Dr. Kendall to welcome you today.
Hi, I'm Dr. Travis Kendall. I am owner of Texas Sedation Dental and Implant Center here in Longview, and we also have a new office in Tyler. And we also own Texas Family Dental in Hallsville. I want to thank you for joining the Health Summit, and just wanted to give you a little heads up about what we do here in Longview and Tyler. We are experts in sedation dentistry and implants and any other dental needs that you have. That's what we do, from crowns, fillings, extractions, root canals, and then we also do lots and lots of dental implants. So people who are missing teeth, people who are losing their teeth, people who need dentures, or people who are wanting fixed implant devices. This is what we do on a daily basis, all under IV sedation. So if you're afraid of the dentist, if you are, if you haven't been to the dentist in a really long time, we're the office for you, because we can do all your work in as little as 1 to 2 visits with little to no memory of what we did. So thank you for joining the Health Summit, and I look forward to meeting you in the future.
All righty, thank you, Dr. Kendall. We also have some gold sponsors: Conterra Networks, again, Azalea Orthopedics, Eastman Chemical, Studio Grace Pilates, and VeraBank. And then our silver sponsors: Excel ER, Medical Plaza Pharmacy, Starfish Ad Age, and then our book sponsor, Christus Good Shepherd Health System. For our keynote speaker today, couldn't do it without these folks, Krista's Good Shepherd Health System and Heiss Senior Living. And then we have an introduction of our keynote speaker from one of those sponsors, Jennifer Ware with Krista's Good Shepherd Health System.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Ware, and I'm the Regional Director of Marketing and Communications with Krista's Good Shepherd Health System. And as one of the keynote speaker sponsors, I have the privilege of introducing today's guest speaker. We are thrilled to have Dr. Rebecca Heiss here today to share how we can learn to fear less in our lives and in our work. Unpacking the paradoxes of the way humans think is Dr. Rebecca Heiss' life work. Her research has been designated transformative by the National Science Foundation. She taught at South Carolina Governor's School for Science and Mathematics and later was recruited to be among the founding faculty members to develop a startup school to nurture entrepreneurial minds and approach learning through impact. She is the founder and CEO of Acuity, a continuous 360 review app used to provide ongoing fearless feedback and challenging leaders to grow in self-awareness. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rebecca Heiss.
Dr. Heiss, can you hear me?
I can. Can you see me? Am I on?
I can see you now, yeah. And hopefully you'll do better sharing your PowerPoint than I did.
We'll see. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate you all having me here today to do the best we can in these trying times. And hopefully we can move the needle forward to being a little healthier, fearing less, and experiencing more productivity and love and health in our own relationships with ourselves and others. So thank you for having me here today. Are we ready to take off?
Yep.
All right, let's see about sharing the screen. Across from me here. Hopefully, without giving away everything. Are we there?
Looks like it. I
All
think
right.
we're good.
Fantastic. Well, let's get going then. I have to start with that. I know, a rough way to start a keynote about health. But that's the reality, right? We all know we're going to die. And I hope it's not for a very, very long time. But what is it that you're going to do when you get that news? If you're one of the lucky ones, one of the lucky few that get to know ahead of time, 1 month to live, what do you do with that time? Now, likely some of you are thinking about that country song, and I know you know it. So I will spare you from singing it myself, but you're probably skydiving and country riding and doing all of the bull riding and mountain climbing and hanging out with friends and family. And the reality is likely you'll do none of that. At least that was true for my sister. When she got her diagnosis, 1 month to live. Here's what living like you're dying looked like. It looked like hospital rooms, surgeries, holidays spent behind glass because you're so scared of introducing potentially hazardous germs. Do you feel that immediate pullback, that immediate distancing, that immediate discomfort? Because we don't even like to talk about death when it becomes real, right? And that's exactly what we do. We pull back from anything that's uncomfortable. And that's interesting because that's actually built into our brains. That's hardwired. Because for a very long time, discomfort and death, well, that was a close shortcut. A shortcut that became really important for our brains because for our ancestors, if they felt a little discomfort, death was right on the heels. Think about it. In ancestral times, you weren't like a little bit cold, you might actually freeze to death. You weren't a little bit hungry, you might actually starve to death. And so this shortcut was important. But today, the same things that kept us alive prevent us now from fully living. We all have the power to take back our control over our fears, to start stretching that shortcut between death and discomfort. So that's what we're here to do today, to gain back our control over our fears. And again, starting with even more bad news, each and every single one of us has a bad brain. Here's what I mean by that. See, our brains aren't built for this world. They're built for this one. And it's a world where we lived with about 150 or so other individuals. And we knew every single person as an individual. We lived like that for about 200,000 years, right up until this starts happening. In the last 200, we've had this massive explosion of population and culture, and we're now living with 8 billion connected individuals. Well, the problem with that is, well, populations and technology and all of this can explode really rapidly. Biology operates on a much different timeline. And so, in fact, we're stuck back here. We're asking this brain, this ancestral brain, to process this world. And in this world, information's coming at us really fast at a rate of about 400 billion bits per second. Now, to put that in context, this ancestral brain can only process about 2,000 bits per second consciously. So what that means, if you want to do the math with me really quick, is that 99.9999999% of the time, we're operating from our subconscious, from these shortcuts, these stories, these instincts that kept us alive, but today keep us stressed, keep us diseased, keep us operating in mind frames that we, frankly, aren't very healthy for us. So I want to explore that today, starting with fear. And if you will, into your chat, because I want to hear from you first. What do you think the number one fear of Americans is today? Dave, I'm hoping you can help me out on this. Outside of death, the number one fear that we have.
I am checking the chat. Losing a job.
Losing a job, great fear. Yeah, that's a good one.
Failure.
Any other? Failure. Huge.
Being disabled.
Being disabled.
Oh, snakes.
Okay. Who said snakes?
It wasn't me.
I know, like people are like, but you're right. It's snakes. It's snakes. That's absurd. You guys, that's absurd. You are literally 9 times more likely to get struck by lightning and die than you are to die of a snake bite in America today. And yet, it's such a real fear. It's so real. Why is it so real? Remember, ancestral brains in a modern environment, we have this weird mismatch. For our ancestors wandering around the savannah trying not to die, snakes, well, that's a pretty logical thing to be afraid of. Today, walking through the Walmart parking lot or wherever you're headed, probably not something we really need to be afraid of. And yet, it always comes up. Now, you guys gave me some good cognitive responses there, some conscious thought, like failure, being disabled. Oh my gosh, those are real fears. Those are deep. Those are thoughtful. I'm going to add one more fear to the list. Try not to scream when I put this up. Are you ready? The new Krispy Kreme Double Down Extra Whopper fries and a shake. Nobody ever screams at that because it looks delicious, doesn't it? Some of you are like, I don't know, is lunch coming soon? And yet the number one thing we die of is heart disease. That should look like the laser beam of an AK-47 pointed directly at your heart. And yet you're looking at it going, oh my gosh, I've never not wanted salt, fries, fats, sugars. Again, because we have a mismatched brain. And for our ancestors, you couldn't get enough fats and sugars to survive this cold, harsh winter we're coming into. But today, you can go down and get 5,000 calories for $5 in under 5 minutes. Our brains aren't built for this world. If they were, kale would taste like that. In case you haven't tried it recently, it doesn't. So our brains certainly aren't built for the modern office. I want you to think about this. In ancestral times, if you're out, just kind of picking some berries, and you hear a little rustle behind you, what should you immediately do? Right? You should be turning and checking it out because, holy smokes, any disruption, that could be life or death. But what are the disruptions that happen throughout our day? And our brain is screaming, snake, snake, snake. No, it's just Karen. She's just coming in to check on us to make sure that we're doing okay. And yet, all of these disruptions produce massive amounts of cortisol. And when our brain is stressed out, it shuts down this frontal lobe, which is where we make conscious cognitive decisions. And we rely instead on this portion of our brain, amygdala, limbic system, sort of the ancient pathways that have shortcuts and instincts. so that we're operating from this subconscious space, often when we don't need to be and we don't want to be. So what ends up happening is we're afraid of really bizarre things like Karen and social media. We may not experience it as fear, but our body is having the exact same reaction as if a tiger jumped in. So let's talk about this in the context of what's happening today, because you may have heard we're talking a lot about diversity today. And this is always interesting to me, because when we look at the research, we all know the research, right? We know that diverse teams are more creative, they're more engaged, they're more accurate, they come out with better solutions to problems. We know that. And yet, when we look around, we still have so many problems with having and working in diverse teams. Why? Well, because if a stranger walks into the room right now who does not look like you, and you've never seen them before, slightly different race, what does your ancestral brain know? Well, again, think back to ancestral times. Who did you hang out with in ancestral times? People that looked like you, that acted like you, that operated under the same rules and regulations as you. And those that didn't, well, they were real threats, right? That other tribe coming over were dangerous. They were scary. They were carrying disease. They might steal your resources. And so today, despite any of our consciousness, where we say, of course, we're not biased. We don't have negative feelings about other races. Of course we don't, consciously. But subconsciously, what is the story? What is the instinct when somebody else comes in? We have a stress response. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably saying, yeah, okay, I get that, but that's not who I am. I'm not like that. Let's just do a quick test of that, shall we? So quickly, picture a felon. What was the first image that came to your brain? Did he look like this? Did any of you picture Martha Stewart? See, that's the shortcut. This doesn't make us bad people. This makes us reliant on shortcuts, on stories, on subconscious behaviors and thoughts that we don't mean to be telling. I'll give you another chance here, don't worry. Picture a CEO. First image that pops to your mind, was it Jeff Bezos? Did any of you picture Ursula Burns, or any person of color, or any female for that matter? Again, this doesn't make us bad people. This makes us reliant on shortcuts that operate especially when we're under stress. Not that we have any stress going on right now. But imagine what that does when you're operating from these biological shortcuts, and then your culture reinforces those biological shortcuts. For example, I don't know about you, I grew up on Disney. So I learned from a very young age to fear powerful women because, well, they're evil, right? They're terrible witches. They're awful. That's not a story that I mean to tell. Of course, that's not a story I mean to tell. And yet ancestrally, it makes a lot of sense because females were valued for our ability to reproduce, at least ancestrally we were. And so today, if you age out of reproductive age and you still have power, that must mean you're a witch. Not a story I think we consciously mean to tell. And yet these get woven in to our society in subconscious ways. So let me back off of race and gender for a second, because let's see, I started with death, then race, then gender. I know we're diving in pretty quick. So let me talk about another stereotype that's more fun for me because, well, I'm not. The stereotypical blonde. Now, you know what the stereotype is, right? Dumb and ditzy. I'm not saying it's true, but we know that stereotype. All right, so give me some examples of this stereotypical blonde. Not people you work with. I did this a couple weeks ago. Somebody was like, Anna! No, not cool. All right, but the celebrities. Give me some celebrity examples of the stereotypical blonde. Who do we have? I'm gonna rely on you, Dave, for that chat. You guys there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
I got Paris Hilton, Reese Witherspoon, Britney Spears, Marilyn Monroe, Goldie Hawn.
Oh, you guys are perfect. That's exactly it. That's the list. That's the one I get every single time I have asked this question. hundreds of thousands of times, literally to hundreds of thousands of people. And I get that exact list every time. Sometimes there's Barbie on there. And yet I have never gotten this answer. Are you ready? Ken, Brad Pitt, Matthew McConaughey, any male for that matter. That's because, whoops, I don't think that you're biased against blondes. I think you're biased against women. And this is not a gendered thing. I'm not saying that it's only men that are answering. I can ask this to an all-female audience. We give the exact same answers. And these are the dangers of these shortcuts, is that we undermine entire populations of people without meaning to. We only understand that dumb and ditzy applies to a blonde if they're also female. And I can flip this too. And I could have asked about dumb jocks, and I would not have been on that list as a female. So we have to be careful about the stories that we tell. So I've pounded us down a little bit. Let me give us some good news about how we can start overcoming these stressors and the stories that we're telling to ourselves and about others. So here's the good news. The good news is that our brains are highly trainable, right? Right now, my guess is a lot of us are experiencing exhaustion. And it's not just because we're staring at Zoom screens all day, right? You're exhausted because your brain is having to literally rewire itself. All the things that used to be completely subconscious, like jumping in the car and going to the grocery store, you now have to weigh with all kinds of decisions like, is it safe? Is it safe enough? Well, should I starve or should I get food or is it safe for my family? Is it safe for me? Is it safe for that other person? Whew, it's a lot of work. But imagine the first time you drove a car. Do you remember that? Like your hands are 10 and 2 and you're looking everywhere and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to adjust this. And it's a lot of work because you're consciously processing all of the new things. But today, if you jump in your car and you're just driving somewhere, you're probably like laid back and you're filling with the radio, doing some distracted driving because you've trained your brain to drive for you subconsciously. That's incredible. If we can train our brain to drive for us, we can train our brain to all kinds of new opportunities, new challenges, new changes. We have the ability because our brains are incredibly trainable. Here's the next piece of really good news. Our brains are wildly powerful. So this is hands down my favorite experiment of all time. So a group of housekeepers split into two separate groups, right? One group is told nothing. The other group is told, hey, do you know that you are meeting the Surgeon General's requirement for exercise when you're cleaning? That's it. That's the only difference between these two groups. Now, they all wore these nifty wristwatches which track steps and exertion levels and heart rate, and all of that is factored out of the analysis. And yet, after 4 weeks' time, there's a massive difference between the two groups. Any guesses as to what it is? The group that was told that they were meeting the Surgeon General's requirement for exercise had lower weight, lower blood pressure, lower body fat, lower waist to hip ratio, and a lower body mass index in 4 weeks' time. I read that study and I was like, you are an intelligent, powerful athlete. I'm also a skeptic, right? And I was like, okay, that's pretty impressive. But they must have missed something. So I dig into this research and I find more research that supports this. And I find more research that supports this idea of mindset. And it becomes obvious to me that the stories that we're telling about ourselves and about others are really important to pay attention to. So frequently we dismiss this because we're like, oh, it's placebo effect. It's, yeah, placebo is incredibly powerful. In fact, it's why we're having a bit of a pharmaceutical crisis right now in this country. See, in order for a drug to be passed on to the next level of testing, it has to meet 90% efficacy. That's good. You want your drugs to work. The problem is not that they're not meeting the 90% efficacy, but that placebos reach 80% efficacy. That's not much difference between the two. So placebos being a sugar pill, nothing biological actually happening, and yet having almost as much effectiveness on treating your body as the biological agent itself. The stories we tell are so important. We have to be willing to tell better stories about ourselves and about those in our communities. So this is some of my favorite research by Franz de Waal. He has a very simple task here. The monkey has to hand the researcher a rock, and the monkey gets as a reward a cucumber. And you can see he's very happy with this cucumber. That is a great reward. Now the other monkey is going to do the exact same thing, only he gets a grape. And what you need to know is that grapes are the best thing you can give a monkey. So this guy's like, ah, sweet, we're getting grapes now. And he does the task really quickly. And he gets, once again, a cucumber. No, not okay. You can see he starts to get really upset about this. He's like, hey, this is ridiculous. I'm doing the same thing. I'm getting cucumbers. This guy's over here getting grapes. I don't know about this. And he's like, you know what? I'm not even gonna do it. The researcher's like, come on, let's go. So he does it once again, and he gets once again a cucumber. And this time he doesn't even sample it. He's like, you know what? Nope. I want you to become like that monkey. You have been accepting cucumbers. You've been accepting these stories, these subconscious shortcuts for so long that have been detrimental not only to yourself, but to other people in our community. We deserve to tell better stories. We deserve always to go after the grapes and start rejecting those cucumbers. We have the power to overcome those fears. Let's do it. Here's how we can. Let's talk about how we can begin to retrain our brains. The first thing we need to do is take a deep breath. Slow down a second. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling exhausted in these times, there's a reason for that. Your brain is consciously trying to process all of this new information. Be gentle with yourself. Give yourself a break. Take a nap, truthfully. Or just take 30 seconds, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and listen. You'll be amazed at what you hear. Think about the stories that happen when you start paying attention to what's going on inside your head. When you start paying attention, what you'll hear is that 70% or more of those stories are negative, because our brains are biased to have a negativity bias. It's why when we're out picking our berries and we're having a lovely time over here, any rustle, we don't think it's our best friend hopping up and saying, hey, let me help you pick berries. No, we're immediately like, oh, it's something that's going to kill us. It's a tiger. So that's important because it did keep us alive. But today, there are so many of those wrestlings that we need to start weeding out. It's why, incidentally, meditation becomes so important. Now, I am sure I am not the first person that told you you needed to meditate, and likely many of us still don't have meditation practices. Here's probably why. You're likely very much like me and said, okay, yeah, meditation, that's woo-woo. I don't do the woo. That's what I said for a long time. And then I started reading about meditation and looking into the science of meditation. And there was one study in particular that changed my view. So a neuroscientist at Harvard took volunteers and she scanned a bunch of brains of non-meditators. And then she put all of these non-meditators through an 8-week-long, 20-minute-a-day meditation program. And at the end of these 8 weeks, she rescanned all of their brains. And in 8 weeks' time, she changed the shape and function of every single person's brain. So this amygdala, this portion back here that's reactionary, shrunk. And this portion right here, the frontal lobe, grew. She literally grew brain cells in the participants' brains. Well, I guess the participants grew their own brain cells, but just with 20 minutes a day of meditation. Now, again, if you're like me, first of all, I was like, oh, I can't get there fast enough. I need more brain cells there. I don't know how else I could better benefit myself than by growing brain, right? But I also was like, 20 minutes is a long time. So here's more good news. 10 minutes is the minimal viable amount of time that you need to meditate in order to grow brain cells. If you don't have 10 minutes a day to invest in yourself, we need to have a chat. 10 minutes. Here's the other thing that stops people like me from meditating. I close my eyes, I get all centered, I try and listen, and what happens? I try and clear my mind, and then all these stories start popping up, and I can't do it. I can't clear my mind. Here's more good news. That means you're doing it already. You're meditating. If you hear those voices, that's the process. Because only when you hear those voices are you allowed to then say, hey, I hear you. I don't actually need you right now. Or I don't like that story. Let's change it. Goodbye. And if you're anything like me, 30 seconds later or 3 seconds later, here comes another one. That's part of the process. It's why we measure anything in business, right? If we don't know what's going on in the back of our heads, how can we grow? How can we change it? How can we eliminate the stories that we no longer need? So take some time to develop a meditation practice and start getting control of these stories. Now, of course, we can't meditate all day, every day. So how can we eke out just a little bit more conscious time for ourselves to make sure that we're in a healthy, centered space? Well, I use alarms. So if you are anything like me and you set an alarm to wake up at a certain time every day, what you might have noticed is you start to wake up a few minutes before that alarm goes off. Yeah? Okay. So we're going to use that exact same principle to train our brains when we're already conscious. So this week, I want you to set 5 alarms to go off at regular intervals throughout the day. When the alarm goes off, simply turn it off, take a deep breath, and check in with yourself. You're going to ask yourself this question: what am I afraid of? In this moment, is there a tiger that I need to be afraid of? Is something that's life-threatening, that is immediate and life-threatening, that's going to kill me if I don't address it right now? If not, then step back from that shortcut, immediate response and say, all right, well, what would be the best outcome? Let's start retraining those stories to be positive, because there's no reason that we need to have this negativity bias anymore. And the good news is, just like those alarm clocks that you set to wake up in the mornings, you're going to be doing this. If you set those alarms to go off throughout the week, you're not going to need those alarms going off all the time anymore, because you'll just sort of become conscious. That's great. Start eking out some of that time for yourself. I have a friend by the name of Artie Isaac who has this as a Post-it note on his computer. It says, "This is your captain speaking." And for him, it helps remind him how he wants the tone of his voice to come across to everybody in his company. If you've ever ridden on an airplane and it gets a little turbulent, your pilot will come on and she might say something like, "Ladies and gentlemen, I recognize that we're going through a little bit of turbulence. Don't worry, everything is fine. We will keep you posted if there's anything to worry about. Over and out." Okay, it's probably a lousy captain there. But the idea is, she's calm. She's secure. She may not have all the information. I don't know when we'll be out of this. We're going to try and find some smooth air. But it's not an immediate panicked, shortcut, we're going to die. Ah! We need to find that centered space, not only so we can communicate outwardly with it, but also to talk to ourselves. When those voices start coming up, those panics, shortcuts, subconscious reactions, we have to be able to say, hey, this is your frontal lobe captain speaking. I don't need you right now. Thanks. The second piece is, I always get asked, well, that's great. I can start to control my own voices, but what about my team? What about my company? What about the larger culture? How can we bring these teachings and work with our biology rather than against it all the time? Well, here's where I say, let's create a common external enemy. Now, I would love to tell you that your brains are loving, peaceful, harmonic places. They're not. They're going to constantly search for that negative and try and find some enemy, some race, gender, age, marketing, those people over there, those people. That's what our brains are built for. So what if we took those people and created consciously a different kind of enemy? Well, here's what I would suggest. Let's redraw those enemy lines. Now, I love sports. I use this as the analogy. I'm a huge Boston Red Sox fan. Sorry, I know that probably won't go over well with all of you. But when I walk into Fenway Park, here's what I see. I'm like high-fiving strangers. I'm buying beer for strangers. I'm giving hugs to strangers back before social distancing, right? Why? Because I immediately know they're a part of my team. I'm not seeing age, race, gender, or any other differences. I'm seeing the right logo. I'm seeing that they're wearing the right colors. We're cheering for the right team. And the reason that I know this is because we all have a very clear common enemy, those losers. Now, I know this sounds a little bit in jest, but it is why rivalry games are so much fun. When you have a clear common enemy, it drives that in-group together, closer. We stop squabbling internally about all of the little differences because we have something bigger to fight against. Major corporations have figured this out, right? So Burger King, who's their common enemy? McDonald's. Coca-Cola, Pepsi. You get the idea here. Now, I'd like to take this a step further and say it doesn't even have to be an immediate competitor. It might even be something internal, like these voices, or something more abstract. So I am a bit of a klutz. I spend a lot of time in the ER, and it's not because I'm a useful doctor, it's because I break things. And I was in the ER maybe 2 years ago with a broken foot, and I'm bored. I'm sitting there as you do and waiting, and I look over, and there's a gentleman who's fixing the door. So I wander up. I obviously like to talk, and I say, "Excuse me, what you doing?" Now, for all intents and purposes, he should have said to me, "I'm fixing the door." But that's not what he said. He said, "Ma'am, at this hospital, it's our mission to reduce patient pain. When patients are pushed through that door, the door sticks and it jars them a little bit. So I'm just here reducing patient pain." Whew, jaw meet floor, right? How powerful is it when your surgeons, your anesthesiologists, your maintenance workers, your nurses, your doctors, you're all of the same team, united by that clear common enemy? You heard it right. Patient pain. I love that. I'm personally super excited for the machine takeover or an extraterrestrial invasion. You want to see humanity unite? There it is, our clear common enemy. Who is going to be your clear common enemy? What will be your clear common enemy? Perhaps it's some of the voices that you have here. Third and finally, one of the best ways to adapt our ancient brains to this modern world where we have so many stressors is to actually sit with discomfort. Here's what I mean. Now, you probably have heard this before, right? Exercise discomfort. Get comfortable with discomfort. What does that even mean? There's enough discomfort happening. I don't need to pile more on, right? But our brains are very black and white in that it's either right or it's wrong. It's either good or it's bad. It's either safe, I'm over here in this safe, wonderful space, and that's where our brains like to live, or I dip my toe into discomfort and our brain leaps to, we're gonna die! Dude, we're not gonna die. It's okay. It's just a very flooded inbox. It's not life or death. So we have to be able to train our brains to be here, living in this gray, in this discomfort where most of life takes place. Most of life isn't totally safe. Most of life isn't death. And yet we haven't trained our brains to live there. It's like you wouldn't show up to the starting line of a marathon, right? Without having trained your body a little bit, maybe gone for a few jogs. But we're asking our brain each and every day to show up at the starting line to race this marathon of discomfort because our brains aren't built for this world. So how can we start training our brains to seek discomfort? Well, this is a lot more fun if I can see you, but since I can't, I will seek ultimate discomfort right now and ask you to do the same by stepping back from your camera, even if you're not on camera, wherever you are. I want us to take 15 seconds. I will time us. There's no music, and we are going to have a dance party. I don't care if you're completely alone in your house. I am. And there's people outside my window right now. So this will be a little extra awkward. But all of you are probably going to do this, right? Like, okay, this is where I live. It's comfortable, it's cool. And I am asking you to get outside of that. I want you like jamming out wherever you are. Just really get your boogie on. Why? Because it's weird, because it's different, because you're going to hear this voice that says, don't do that. Your hips don't move like that. What's the danger? Are you going to kick me out of the tribe? So many of these stories are about rejection and failure and being kicked out of the tribe. Today, if you get kicked out of your tribe, you just need to find a better tribe. We have to get over these stressors that aren't real stressors in today's modern life. So I'm going to put 15 seconds on. I'm going to boogie. I want you to boogie. Are you ready? On your mark, get set, let's go. Okay, stop. I hope somebody danced with me. If you did, great. What you started to do just then was dip your toe into discomfort, and likely you're smiling, which is so bizarre. But you're smiling because you didn't die. You challenged your brain to step into the discomfort. You didn't die, and so your brain is like, okay, cool. Now tomorrow, when you go to Starbucks or you go to your favorite local coffee shop, and you walk in and you say, hey, can I get that cup of coffee for 10% off? And your heart starts doing this, and you start breathing heavy because you're like, this is so awkward. This is so embarrassing. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What's going to happen? Likely they're going to say, no. And then you pay your $10.99 or whatever it is you just need to pay for your cup of coffee. You take your coffee and you walk out the door. Nothing bad happens. But you'll have that stress response. You'll recognize it, and your brain records, oh, nothing bad happened. Huh, I didn't die. The more we can actively seek discomfort, actively challenge those stories in our head, the more when discomfort finds us and we're not seeking it, we have that stress response and we go, wait a second. Hey, brain, I know what this is about. It's okay. Remember all those other times that we did those weird things and we didn't die? It's okay. You don't have to go back here. You don't have to dig for those subconscious reactionary responses. We're okay. I can take the time to process this right here and now. Discomfort is truly what I needed. I needed to have trained my brain for the discomfort of finding out that somebody that I loved dearly had 1 month to live. Because when my sister got that diagnosis, the first thing that I did, I distanced myself from her. I was so scared. I was so fearful of the loss of the relationship. I was so fearful that I hadn't been enough to her. It took most of that time that she had left, and I threw it away. And it wasn't until the last week of her life that I sat down and I had a fear-less conversation with her. And it went something like this. I sat with her and I apologized. And I said, I am so sorry that I wasn't the expert that you needed. I am so sorry I didn't solve this cancer. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. And she started crying, and so did I, because I realized in that moment she hadn't needed me to be anything other than me, to sit with her in that discomfort, to say, you're going to die. And man, that's hard. But it doesn't mean that my relationship with you wasn't relevant. It doesn't mean that I'm not good enough to be here by your side now. See, to me, death, not the worst outcome. It's coming for all of us. The worst thing is living a life full of fear. That's not life. That's allowing your decisions, your instincts, your biases to control your decisions for you. So here's where I want to close. My father was a minister, and so there were a lot of sermons. I only remember one, but it was a good one. And he stood in front of his congregation. He had a water bottle. And he opened it up and he started shaking it. And the water's going everywhere. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is cool. And he asked his congregation a very simple question. He asked them, why does the water spill out? It seemed kind of obvious to me, right? Like, you're shaking the water bottle. Of course, that wasn't the answer. The answer was the water spills out because it's water that's inside. What's inside of you? When life shakes you, which inevitably it will, it is. It's happening right now. What spills out of you? And I think the answer for all of us is fear. Fear spills out in the form of stories and instincts and cortisol responses and stress, and stories that we don't mean to be telling. So my challenge for each of you as you leave here today is to become a bit more fearless. Now, you'll notice that less is in parentheses. I don't want any of you walking out in front of a Greyhound bus because you're like, I'm fearless. That's a terrible idea. Being fearless has never been a good option. But actively and consciously deciding what deserves my fear, what is an actual tiger, from what is a story that's outdated and no longer serving me. Because as we fear less, we make room for more. We make room for more productivity, for more love, for more relationships, for more openness, for more of our conscious selves. We're able to move ourselves from a space of a subconscious being to a super conscious human. Imagine what you'll do as you become fearless. And that's where I leave you all today. Thank you so much for your time, your attention. I am happy to take any questions. I think I finished with 5 minutes for questions there. So hopefully, if I stop sharing my screen, maybe, not sure how to do that.
Oh, that's
Sorry,
okay.
guys.
I think, Rebecca, go to screen share. There you go.
There we
You
go.
did it. All right. Phenomenal stuff. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you,
I want to let
guys.
everybody know that if you have a question, there is a Q&A section on the chat. We're getting a thank you so much. Great info. Really enjoyed it. One of the comments. Oh, we did get a Go Red Sox. You got one. So
Whoever you are my tribe.
one Go Red Sox. Let's see. You're an amazing speaker. Enjoyed your session.
Thank you.
Any Q&A, guys, go to the Q&A box. I want to let you know while we're waiting for any questions you might have that we're going to do the sponsor session that we've told our sponsors about. We're just going to do it right here. So in a few minutes, we'll take a break. And we got a question as whether or not, Rebecca, you will share your PowerPoint. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, Amber, I'm happy to do that. What I'll ask is reach out to me, or I can send them to you, however it's easiest for everybody. If you want
We can send.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, we can send it out for you.
Go ahead.
Just get it to me and I'll send it to everybody.
I will send it. Perfect. Suzanne, thank you for dancing in your office. I'm glad I wasn't the only one. Yay!
Well, while we're waiting on any questions you may have, I want to let you know, again, for the sponsor session, since almost all of you are with one of our sponsors, we're just going to leave it right here. So we'll stop the presentation part of this in just a minute. We'll take a break. You can either stay on and network around the tables like we were trying to do at the beginning, or if you need to take a quick break, turn your camera and mic off and go do what you need to do, and then come back at 11:15 and we'll start a second session with more great stuff, more great conversation. Even we'll have more opportunity for questions and that kind of thing. I want to go ahead and recognize our sponsors once again. We cannot do this. Our cornerstone investors: Aon Core, Eastman Chemical, Copeland Insurance Group, Texas Bank and Trust, Vera Bank, and Terra Networks. We appreciate you guys so much. The HealthyVIEW Initiative sponsors, again, Aon Core, Copeland Insurance Group, and Worley. Our presenting sponsor today, Texas Sedation and Implant Center. Thank you so much, Dr. Kendall. Gold sponsors, Terra Networks, Azalea Orthopedics, Eastman Chemical, Studio Grace Pilates, and Vera Bank. Our silver sponsors, XLER, Medical Plaza Pharmacy, Starfish, Ad Age, and our book sponsor. Oh, Rebecca, do you have a book coming out?
Actually, thank you for asking. I have a book coming out, but it's not until 2021.
Oh man.
Yeah,
okay.
But I will say I do have one more thing, and I'll happily offer it to any of you all with a discount. We have a 360 review app coming out. So if any of you are interested in getting sort of fearless feedback about yourself and have always wanted to have a 360 review, but it's super expensive, what we're offering is an app that is, you know what? Screw it. I'll make it free for all of you guys. I'd like to do that for you all. So it is coming out next month, and you'll have the ability to ask questions about who you are to your friends, family, colleagues, and get some fearless feedback there. So be looking for that. And I'm happy to send that out to you all as well.
All right, super. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, I didn't see any questions. So how about we take a break now? Does that sound good?
Perfect. Sounds great.
All right, and then we'll come back at 11:15, guys. We invite you to come back. Thank you for being on today.